actually, it's a bit like cooking, Just because you've got the ingredients doesn't actually mean you've got a good meal. You've got to have the ingredients, the recipe, the chef and the kitchen, and then you might get a good meal. It's a whole lot about, it's process, product, people and performance. They all have to come together. Well, because government was tuning out, we set up this charity, which started with actually setting up this website. We didn't think the website would be a charity when we set it up, about 15 years ago now, didn't we, Adrian? But then we suddenly found that we needed something to represent building performance in the public interest. So in 2000, we started looking into turning it into a charity. We got charitable status in 2002. So here's our website. You can get stuff off that, and Probe's one of the clickies up to the left, and soft landings. I think we've had a session on soft landings. Is that right? Maybe not. I'll say a bit about that. Adrian, did you want to say a word?
Well, yes, just to say that we're obviously rushing this stuff, and there's a lot more. There's masses more. On the events link, I've already uploaded, I think, today's presentation, so you can immediately get it. But there's absolutely masses of stuff here, which goes back 15 years, and we originally set it up because people kept asking us for our papers, and one of the things we did was to keep the copyright to everything we've written, and which was a major thing, because it meant we could put this together and not be conned or ripped off by academic publishers especially. Just don't give your copyright away to anybody. Say no.
That means we also have a password. You can get some of the stuff without a password, but you may have to get a password for the site, because some people say, well, we still have to have a business on this, so you can only make the information available to registered users. But all you have to do is apply for a password. Adrian will send you around. It doesn't cost you any money, but it also, we know who you are, so we can communicate with you, though we don't do that very often. But you often communicate with us. So that's a bit of background. Takes us to sort of 10 years or so now. So where have we got in the last 10 years? Well, unfortunately, the same things are coming up again and again and again. I won't talk through these, but it's the same things as I showed you in relation to the probe cover, slightly elaborated, not exaggerated. And particularly, if we're doing things where we want to push the boundaries on making buildings better, then we better tune into outcomes. But the systems we've got don't generally allow us to do that. They're sort of designed for producing widgets, or not even for doing that. And so the basic rule, if possible, get what you do right, but don't do too much of it. So you've probably got millions of new university buildings, or certainly a few, in Sheffield, which are like this. Lots of lovely daylight and the lights are on, and there's no way anybody can turn them off. This is the University of East London, it's their business school. And so I went to the reception desk, the sunny day, you can't quite understand why, this is designed for daylight and the architects made these surfaces black, but that's another thing. And I say, can you turn these lights off? Oh, no, we're instructed not to, but, surely you can turn these lights off. Well, okay, we'll turn the lights off. So they turned the lights off, and about 30 seconds later there was a scream. Because it was on the stairs, and the stairs go up behind, and it's all on the same light switch, in spite of the fact that A, the building regulations say you shouldn't be doing that, and B, this was designed by the same designers who designed the Elizabeth Fry building 12 years before. So we got a terrible forgetting curve in relation to these basics. And we've got this sort of extraordinary thing on controls. You've got this sort of stuff, which, it's got lots of real estate here, where you could engrave the panel to tell you what this lighting control is doing. It tells you nothing. And what we do is we keep on going around buildings and find that, the most basic things people don't understand. It's never been explained to them, and often it doesn't work in relation to design intent. We built lots of schools recently, and you know what you should do in a school classroom to control the lighting. It's really easy. You have a switch for the lights by the windows, so you turn them off when the daylight's good. You have a switch for the lights not by the windows, so you can turn them off or on when you haven't got enough light there. And you have a switch for the lights by the blackboard or whiteboard, So you can turn that off when you want to see PowerPoints, or you can turn it on when you're using Blackboard or Whiteboard. Easy, isn't it? 95% of new school classrooms I've seen do not have that basic level of functionality. They got this sort of stuff, and it completely baffles people, and stuff gets left off. Or you get this building actually received, more essentially in the States, it received more environmental design advice than probably any building in the world, but they didn't actually think about the evening sunshine. So this is a biomass boiler in a primary school, and biomass boilers are a jolly good way of ticking the box to have low carbon energy supply. They're completely stupid in the primary school. This was done, this is Webley Primary School, was done 10 years ago. We should have learnt the lessons, but unfortunately, because the feedback loop isn't closed, you get the nice to have people, and you're filling in the tick boxes. Now we're finding all over the country biomass boilers that are either put in gratuitously, are not a sensible thing to have in the context, or haven't worked very well, and so people have stopped using them. Or maybe they are there, but they're in the middle of a city, and do you really want the transport movements and the air pollution for it? In fact, it was lovely. This was a month ago. I worked in Lawrence Berkeley Lab a few years ago, and my ex-boss there came over, and he was taken round some, quote, green buildings in London on a ministry meeting that he'd been invited to. And he went to one of these buildings, which is actually in London, a new office building, and they had a biomass boiler. And he asked a few awkward questions about it, and they said, "Oh, we've only lit it up for you." So this is a strategic diagram we produced that came out of our work. It's sort of terribly simple. It's sort of Harvard Business School 2x2 matrix, So buildings can be more or less complicated, and they need more or less building management input. And this gives you 4 types of building. You get type A, which is the sort of building equivalent of a Formula 1 racing team. So needs a lot of work done on it, can go at tip-top condition, but you need to run very hard to stand still. These buildings, this is a bit like the Elizabeth Fry when it actually got there, or maybe Elizabeth Fry's more here to start with. You're actually designing it to be simple and robust and not need a lot of looking after. Up here, things that get more management than they deserve tend to be the demonstration projects that may get good results, but sometimes need too much tender loving care. The danger is you end up here. The danger is you end up with a building that you can't afford to look after. And unfortunately, that's most of the public buildings we've built in the last 10 years. Because they've been trying to wait for the commercial buildings, but actually in a recession, people want to spend money on their buildings, don't they? So either you're trapped, like in the PFI, where you can't save money in the buildings because the contractor doesn't let you, or alternatively, you try to save money, but the technology collapses. So people are always talking about high-performance buildings, and I think this is terribly dangerous. What we need is a sort of simple, smart, sense and science building, stuff where we're actually getting the basics right, using physics, engineering, and a better understanding of human and management factors, so we can actually make less do more. We can't always do that. We're going to need some racing cars, we're going to need some jewellery, we don't need everything to be basic. But a lot of opportunity there, because otherwise the danger is you end up here. And you've got something which in the worst case is actually unusable. You can't afford to occupy it even though you're still paying the rent on it.
It's just this is a Sheffield insert. One of these Type Bs by Brenda and Robert Vale, who are graduates of this university, is the Woodhouse Medical Centre in Sheffield. And it's one of the probe studies as well. And it's not perfect, nothing is, but it certainly is a Type B building, a normal everyday building that's manageable and works. And just one other point from the previous slide, which is all about don't procure what you can't manage. Every technology, like a biomass boiler, will have a niche where it works brilliantly. Everyone. The classic is London's Route Master bus, which works stunningly well in London, but not so brilliantly well elsewhere. You know, that technology within that context, with the management support and the resourcing it got, worked brilliantly in that context. There will be situations, not that many, where wood burning and biomass works brilliantly because you can afford it, you can manage it, you can procure it properly. But in primary schools, it's not very sensible. And what happened was that the calculator that was used, the carbon calculator that was produced by the department, I don't know, I'm struggling to remember their name, the department.
Children's Schools and Families it was there.
Yes.
Yeah.
The carbon calculator meant that there was an easy way of saving carbon, sticking a biomass boiler, irrespective of context. That is complete insanity. We've only got 10 minutes.
I've only got 10 minutes. Does anyone want to comment? We're sort of coming towards the final slides now.